I can give a bit of an overview first over the typical attachment styles. I have to say that we learn an attachment style to stay safe, to function in our family environment. So this is something that we learn as children. And none of these styles, though, are set in stone. They're not fixed categories. There's 4 main attachment styles, but people even have a mix of different attachment styles. And also each relationship brings out different feelings and reactions. That means in one relationship, we might be showing up as more securely attached than in another relationship. So the secure attachment, that's that type of style that we're all striving for. When we're securely attached, that means we're okay in connection with someone else. We're also okay on our own. We generally feel lovable. We feel that we are loved. We're relatively flexible in terms of when it comes to accepting differences or conflicts. We trust that the other person is not going to leave us because we're securely attached. And that usually happens when we've experienced a consistently responsive caregiver in childhood, who was supportive, who was loving without being overly protective or being too intrusive, but also without being too distant, right? So just that right way of parenting where the child can feel secure and loved, secure enough to go out into the world and make their own experiences. And relationship expert, therapist, author Stan Tetkin talks about being an anchor when we're securely attached. So that's a beautiful metaphor of what it means to be securely attached. Now, there's more insecure attachment styles we could have developed. On one end of the scale is the avoidant attachment, insecurely avoidant. And Stan Tetkin talks about an island. The person is like an island. They over-rely on themselves. They have trouble maybe asking for help or relying on others, being vulnerable. They keep others at a distance, including the intimate partner. They might feel smothered very easily, or just in general diminish the importance of relationships. So overly independent. And in our society, it's interesting, we value independence, but we all have to be aware that we're all interdependent, really. And that attachment style happens when the caregiver was not present enough. And this is not about pointing fingers at parents or caregivers. Parents have their own things going on. They have their own traumas. There might be illness, sickness. There might be all sorts of challenges why perhaps the caregiver wasn't present enough. Or they might have been present when teaching a certain task, but maybe not so much present emotionally. Then another insecure attachment style is the ambivalent attachment. There's a lot of anxiety with that attachment style. Stan Tetkin brings the example of being like a wave. So a wave comes in, seeks connection, longs for connection, wants connection, and then retreats out of fear to be rejected, to be not lovable enough. So this person is anxious about having their needs met, and has trouble believing that they're worth having their needs met, that they're lovable. And that happens when the care during childhood was unpredictable or intermittent. That person will often show up with a fear of abandonment and a hypervigilance about rejection, of being hurt emotionally. Then there is a fourth attachment style, but that's the least common style. That is a disorganized attachment. And that's a person who swings between the avoidance and the ambivalence. So one moment they might be triggered, the next moment they might be checked out. And that is the result of having seen your parents or caregivers as threatening in childhood. Or there was so much unresolved trauma for that parent or that caregiver that there was an atmosphere of fear and dread. So then that person can really get stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze response with that disorganized attachment.